I'm Skylar Jenkins, 34, a systems analyst, and this Saturday morning was supposed to be my moment of peace. My house, my rules. Then my phone buzzed. It was my brother Ethan, the one person in my family who always felt entitled to everything I earned. I answered, expecting the usual cash plea. Instead, I heard the words that shattered my peace entirely. The violation was instant. Mom just gave me your house's security code. I'll be there soon to crash. The security code. My blood ran cold. Could I actually stop my own brother from invading the one safe space I had fought for? Stay tuned to find out. To understand the panic I felt when Ethan called, you need the backstory. My brother and I were raised under the same roof, but we lived in two different universes. I was the reliable, high-achieving one, scholarships, double shifts, saving every penny. Ethan? He specialized in maximizing downtime, racking up debt, and charming Mom into bailing him out of every scrape. I built, he took. It was the core family dynamic. I was praised for my success, but penalized for my effort. My parents relied on my stability while perpetually indulging Ethan's drama. My achievements weren't celebrated, they were treated like a safety net for his inevitable failures. The house I bought. They saw it not as my victory, but as a potential temporary shelter for their favorite and failing son. How could they justify giving away my hard-earned security? The answer lay in their past behavior. I was the family's human ATM, the one they called when the car broke down or the rent was due. My role was simple. I had to be successful so they could afford to be irresponsible. When I got my degree, the celebration lasted 10 minutes, then Mom asked for the tuition money back just for a little loan. I was the pillar, but pillars are just expected to hold up the roof, nobody stops to admire them. I learned to expect nothing. The achievement high always faded fast, replaced by the crushing reality that my success only made me a bigger target. The emotional dynamic was exhausting. They never asked how I felt, only how much I made. My greatest fear wasn't failure, it was that my success would never be enough to stop their neediness. That's why this house became my fort, a place built on my own terms, with my own money. This home was my boundary. And now, Ethan and my mother were treating my fortress like a public library. They were about to learn that the responsible achiever was finally done being exploited. But first, let's look at the early damage. I learned my first lesson about financial independence the hard way, at age 16. I'd saved $2,000 from working weekends at the mall. It was my college escape fund. I went to deposit it, but the box was empty. Mom looked ashamed, then defensive. She'd borrowed it for an emergency, Ethan's traffic ticket, naturally. The money never came back. It was pure family theft. That betrayal taught me that love was conditional and money was currency for control. From then on, I kept my finances secret. Do you remember the first time your family taught you to be guarded? It's a universal experience. Their entitlement didn't stop at my savings, it crossed the line into my professional life. I was 24, starting my career as an analyst, when Mom showed up unannounced at my office. She didn't call first, she walked straight past the receptionist, demanding to see me about an urgent family debt. She embarrassed me in front of my boss and my entire team. My work was never sacred. You're making so much money, Skylar. You should be helping your brother. I stood there, mortified, listening to her preach about my moral obligation to fund Ethan's unemployment. My accomplishments were never a source of pride for them, they were just a bigger pool of money they felt entitled to dip into. The humiliation solidified my resolve to never give them an inch again. They truly saw me as a commodity. I left that job soon after, recognizing I needed true independence. But how do you keep building your dreams when the people closest to you are constantly trying to tear them down? It took years of silent struggle. After those betrayals, I learned the only person I could rely on was the one staring back in the mirror. My work ethic wasn't just about money, it was about survival. I took extra courses, worked through my lunch breaks, and automated my finances so thoroughly that no one could ever borrow from me again. I was building walls, one paycheck at a time, protecting my peace. My resilience was my weapon. Years later, that grind paid off. I bought my own house, a sanctuary, finally. But my parents, seeing my mortgage-free existence, only saw opportunity. They didn't see the sacrifice, they saw the asset. They saw a place where Ethan could crash without paying rent. My determination had led me to success, but it had also painted a huge target on my back. How do you protect success from greed? My family rarely attended my achievements, but when they did, they somehow managed to reroute the spotlight. When I won the Analyst of the Year award, Mom's first comment wasn't praise, it was a loud sigh about how if only Ethan had your focus, Skylar. My success wasn't a standalone victory, it was just a negative comparison tool for my brother. The sting lasted for weeks. The house itself was the biggest target. At my housewarming party, instead of celebrating the down payment I saved for 7 years, my father spent the entire evening complaining to guests about Ethan's massive student loan debt. They subtly framed my hard-won asset as part of the family's collective financial struggle. They never owned up to their financial mismanagement, they just outsourced the emotional and monetary debt to me. My triumph was their burden. Every comment, every sigh, every unannounced visit was leading to this exact Saturday morning phone call. Their entitlement had metastasized. They truly believed I hadn't earned this house, but that I merely held it in trust for the real family. But this time, their manipulation wouldn't work. How did I finally fight back? The phone rang, and the caller ID said it all, MOM. I knew the silence from the last confrontation was over. I answered, bracing myself for the emotional storm. Skylar. What did you do? You changed the code. Ethan is supposed to be staying there. How could you lock your own brother out of your house? Her voice was laced with frantic outrage, instantly escalating the conflict. I took a slow, steady breath. My voice was deadly calm, which only seemed to enrage her more. I changed the code because it is my house, Mom. And more importantly, you gave away my security code without my permission. That's not a misunderstanding, that's betrayal. Did you genuinely think that after everything, you could just give my brother the keys to my safe place? The line had to be drawn now. This is exactly what I mean, Skylar. You have no heart. You've always been so cold since you got that fancy job. Ethan is our child and he needs help. You are selfish. What is wrong with you? We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us, by kicking your own brother out on the street. Her voice was now a weapon. The verbal blow landed hard. That word, selfish, snapped the last thread of my restraint. Selfish? You think I'm selfish for protecting the home I bought with the money you tried to steal from me? You call me cold because I finally stood up to 20 years of financial and emotional abuse. Where was your family concern when my college savings disappeared? The phone call with Mom ended with a dial tone and a profound sense of finality. Now, the waiting began. I sat in my home office, watching the live feeds of my security cameras. Every corner of the property was visible. This wasn't just my house, it was the battlefield where I would finally enforce my boundaries. The silence was deceptive, like the quiet eye of a hurricane. I was ready for his arrival. A tiny part of me, the teenager whose money was stolen, wished for a peaceful resolution. I saw an old photo, Ethan and me, smiling, before the resentment festered. But the Ethan who was coming was a wrecking ball, not a brother. I grabbed the house deed, placing it right next to the security control panel as a visual reminder of what I was protecting. The old Skylar was officially dead. Then, the movement. A beat-up, familiar sedan rounded the corner on camera 3. Ethan. He was driving slowly, likely trying to appear casual, like he belonged there. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady on the security panel. He was here, thinking my mother's betrayal was his free pass to my life. The final moment was upon me. I clicked the mouse, maximizing the front door camera feed. I activated the high-resolution recording feature and triple-checked the status of the access denied protocol I had created. No errors. Everything was locked, secured, and ready to document his actions. My technical skills were finally being used for pure, necessary self-defense. The trap was perfectly set. Ethan parked, not even bothering to close his door fully, a sign of his arrogance and assumption of immediate access. He walked right up to the front door, pulling out a key, the key my mother had promised him. He looked smug. He was about to learn that physical keys mean nothing when faced with digital encryption and a determined owner. The time for action was here. Ethan inserted the key. He twisted. And nothing happened. What came next was the satisfying sound of a boundary being decisively enforced. Wait for the high-tech revenge. I hung up on her. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to listen to another syllable of her guilt-tripping. She was still talking when I hit the end call button. That final act, giving my brother my security code without asking, was the ultimate message: your independence is an illusion, and your home is our resource. The betrayal felt complete. I walked through the house, checking every window, every lock. They didn't respect my words, they didn't respect my financial freedom, they certainly didn't respect my legal ownership. I realized the only language they understood was physical exclusion, backed by unassailable technology. My blood ran cold, but my mind was laser-focused. My home was about to become a literal fortress. My preparations were about to be tested. I pulled up my old revenge plan on the screen. It was full of elaborate, over-the-top schemes. But the core goal remained: to make them respect my life. They treated my accomplishments as luck and my hard work as their communal property. I was nothing more than a highly paid bank account for their favorite child, Ethan. The depth of the dismissal was vast. I deleted the old code, the one my mother had compromised, and created a new one, a 12-digit sequence known only to me. More importantly, I activated the two-stage security protocol. If the wrong code was entered, the system wouldn't just refuse entry, it would initiate a full, recorded lockdown and automatically notify local authorities. My digital execution was finalized. Mom had insisted Ethan was already on his way. She'd given him the key and the old code, sending him straight into my trap. She expected me to fold. She expected me to be the good girl who would crumble under pressure. But she didn't realize I wasn't waiting for a compromise, I was waiting for an infraction. The clock was ticking on his arrival. The question wasn't if Ethan would show up, but what would happen when he tried to force his way in. Would he use the code? Ethan twisted the key my mother gave him. Nothing. He pulled out his phone, likely getting the old code from Mom, and punched it into the keypad. The system flashed red. He tried again, angrily, 2 more times. My heart didn't race, it settled into a slow, satisfying drumbeat. The technology worked flawlessly. His face was a picture of growing rage and confusion. His expectation met my preparation. The confusion quickly turned to aggression. Ethan started slamming his shoulder against the heavy, solid wood door. This was the moment I had anticipated. I leaned into the microphone, access denied. This property is secured and under video surveillance. Leave immediately. The automated voice was calm and booming, my voice. Digitized and weaponized. He jumped back, startled. Good. He took a moment, then started toward the nearest window, peering in. He was testing my resolve. He failed to realize that the boundary was not the wood of the door, but the legal line of my property. I didn't hesitate. I activated the two-stage protocol. A green light flashed on my screen, followed by a text alert, 911 notified. Breach of property threat detected. The police were officially en route. For the first time in my life, I felt completely in control of the situation involving my family. I wasn't pleading, I wasn't arguing, I wasn't crying. I was executing a plan. I was using objective facts, time-stamped video and legal statutes to enforce my wishes. This was not emotional warfare, this was strategic action. My revenge was precise, not petty. Ethan's phone began to buzz, likely Mom, panicking after my mother's futile attempt to call me again. He looked around wildly, realizing the security camera facing him wasn't just decorative. The automated voice had warned him, the silent sirens in the distance confirmed it. He saw the true stakes, a permanent record, and police involvement. The power imbalance had corrected. Ethan scrambled back into his beat-up sedan, his smug expression replaced by sheer terror. He sped away, breaking several traffic laws, clearly desperate to get away before the police arrived. The screen showed the police car rounding the distant corner seconds after he fled. My victory was documented, complete, and legally sound. The battle was won on my terms. I watched the police car drive past my now empty driveway, and I knew I was safe. But this was more than just safety. It was affirmation. I had finally prioritized myself. But what was the family's reaction to this definitive, recorded, and legally supported rejection? Ethan was still pounding on the keypad, entering the old code my mother had compromised. The system's failure beep was a symphony to my ears. He smashed the last key, and the system responded with a deep, authoritative voice, access denied. Invalid entry. This incident has been recorded. The look on his face, that sheer, unadulterated shock, was everything I had waited for. My digital wall was impenetrable. I knew he needed a human voice to truly register the rejection. I leaned into the mic, my voice distorted, deep, and utterly devoid of emotion. This is a privately owned residence. You are trespassing. Your presence is unwanted. You have 30 seconds to leave the premises before law enforcement is contacted. It was pure, clinical enforcement. No arguing, no pleading, just consequences. The power dynamics were flipped. Ethan immediately pulled out his phone, his face red with a mixture of shame and fury. He was calling Mom, naturally. He expected her to fix this, to use her mom magic to bypass my system. He was frantically explaining the high-tech lockdown, the voice, the warning. I could almost hear her screeching on the other end. Their old tricks were useless now. Ethan didn't move fast enough. I had given him the chance to save himself, but his arrogance kept him there. I clicked the Execute Law Enforcement Protocol button. The system sent the video feed, the time-stamped log, and the GPS location straight to the local police precinct. My hands were perfectly steady. I was not the panicked girl anymore, I was the strategist. The consequences were now irreversible. Through my high-powered microphone, I heard the faint, but unmistakable, sound of sirens. Ethan heard it too. He dropped his phone, sprinted back to his car, and drove away like a bat out of hell, narrowly missing a neighbor's mailbox. He fled not because I yelled at him, but because the cold, hard reality of the law was about to grab him. My calculated revenge was complete. The police arrived exactly 90 seconds later, only to find an empty driveway and a detailed digital report of the attempted trespass. They didn't even need to knock. My work was done. But the quiet silence that followed was terrifying. I knew my parents would lose their minds when they realized the police had been involved. What devastation would their fury unleash? The police car finally pulled away, satisfied with the digital report of the incident and the fact that the trespasser was gone. The flashing red lights faded, and with them, the immediate danger. I watched the tail lights vanish, and a profound sense of heavy, cold relief washed over me. I hadn't just fended off an attack, I had used the law and my own ingenuity to establish an unbreachable perimeter. The high-tech defense held. I scrubbed back the footage and watched Ethan's frantic movements on repeat, the failed key, the frustrated key code attempts, the panic when my digitized voice boomed out. The video was undeniable proof of his intent to illegally enter my property. This wasn't hearsay or a misunderstanding as my mother would claim. This was evidence, time-stamped, uneditable, and legally binding. My insurance policy was activated. I took a moment to walk through my home. The air felt cleaner, lighter. This space was truly mine, earned through my own effort and secured by my own resolve. Every wall, every piece of furniture, felt like a trophy of my independence. My family's disrespect had fueled my actions, but my actions had resulted in my peace. The home was finally sanctified. My phone buzzed again, this time with a torrent of angry texts from Mom. How could you call the police on your brother? You're sick. You're dead to US. I read the words without flinching. Her outrage was confirmation of my success. The emotional blackmail was their last resort, and it had zero effect on me now. Their final weapon was disarmed. I knew this wouldn't be the end. Toxic families don't give up easily, they simply change tactics. The next move would come from Dad, the passive aggressor, the family spokesperson, the one who would try to rationalize their betrayal. He would try to rewrite the narrative, to twist my self-defense into an act of cruelty. I prepared for the psychological war. But they had forgotten one crucial detail: I had prepared for every move. My revenge plan wasn't just physical and legal, it was documentary. I had years of recorded calls and emails proving their manipulation. Would Dad's next call be the moment I finally exposed the deep root of their deceit? My phone buzzed again, this time with a torrent of angry texts from Mom. How could you call the police on your brother? You're sick. You're dead to US. I read the words without flinching. Her outrage was confirmation of my success. The emotional blackmail was their last resort, and it had zero effect on me now. Their final weapon was disarmed. I knew this wouldn't be the end. Toxic families don't give up easily, they simply change tactics. The next move would come from Dad, the passive aggressor, the family spokesperson, the one who would try to rationalize their betrayal. He would try to rewrite the narrative, to twist my self-defense into an act of cruelty. I prepared for the psychological war. But they had forgotten one crucial detail: I had prepared for every move. My revenge plan wasn't just physical and legal, it was documentary. I had years of recorded calls and emails proving their manipulation. Would Dad's next call be the moment I finally exposed the deep root of their deceit? I returned to my desk, picked up the house deed, and held it tightly. This was the document that mattered. This was mine. I had done what was necessary, not what was easy. My parents defined family by control and exploitation. I was defining it by self-respect and safety. This was not cruelty, it was survival. The necessary emotional reset. The text messages from Mom were slowing down, a sure sign that Dad was being deployed. I knew his call was imminent. He wouldn't scream, he would use logic, disappointment, and a calculated tone of parental grief. I opened my evidence folder, recorded calls, email threads, bank statements. My counterattack needed to be as strategic as their manipulation. I had to be ready for the drama. And there it was. The moment I had mentally rehearsed for years. The phone rang, displaying the cold truth: Dad. He was calling to condemn my actions and demand an explanation. But this time, I wouldn't defend, I would expose. I reached for the record button, my finger hovering over it. What shocking evidence would I finally unleash? I took a breath, hit the record button, and answered. Skylar. Your mother and I are deeply concerned. Calling the police on your own brother? That's unforgivable. We only wanted to help Ethan. This is your home, but we are your family. His voice was the soft, manipulative velvet I knew too well. Dad, this is being recorded. Speak carefully. The game had officially changed. Recorded? Skylar, don't be dramatic. I'm only asking you to consider the family. Ethan is struggling. You have this large, beautiful home. We raised you to share. Where is your compassion, Skylar? You're hurting your mother. He played the classic sympathy for Ethan card. His manipulation was so predictable. Compassion? Let's talk about money, Dad. You know why I have this house, right? Because I had to rebuild everything you and Mom destroyed. I have the bank records proving that $40,000 in my college fund was transferred out and into Ethan's business account. That wasn't sharing, that was financial abuse and theft. The silence on the other end was deafening. The truth landed like a sledgehammer. Skylar, that was years ago. We planned to pay you back. It was a family loan, not theft. A loan without my signature is theft. And now, about today, I have a police report and video evidence of Ethan attempting to illegally enter my property using a security code you provided. That is contributing to a crime, Dad. I didn't call the police for drama, I called them for protection. His position weakened instantly. I could hear him breathing heavily, the weight of years of lies crashing down. This isn't just about Ethan. It's about how you've always treated me. I have the recorded phone calls where you and Mom explicitly tell each other to manipulate Skylar into covering the credit card debt. The disrespect isn't new, I just finally have the proof. The walls were closing in on them. So let me be perfectly clear, Dad. The boundary is permanent. If Mom or Ethan ever step foot on my property again, I will file a restraining order, and I will use all of my evidence to support it. This is not a negotiation. It's an eviction from my life. Do you understand the gravity of that, or should I email you the legal statutes? My resolve was now total. Skylar, you can't, we're your parents. We didn't. You did, Dad. The evidence says so. I'm ending the call now. Goodbye. I hung up, the clean, decisive click of the phone ending not just a call, but the illusion of my family. The revenge felt absolute, cold, calculated, and legally airtight. The toxic cycle was broken. I sat back, the adrenaline draining away, leaving a strange mix of pride and profound sorrow. The evidence folder held years of betrayals, not just financial, but emotional. Every lie, every subtle put-down, every time my achievement was minimized to boost Ethan, it was all there, documented. This revenge wasn't about hurting them, it was about validating my own reality after years of gaslighting. My digital diary of deceit. I scrolled past an email where Mom suggested I take out a second mortgage for the good of the family a year after I paid off my student loans. They saw my success as a liquid asset for them to draw on, not as a source of pride. They simply couldn't comprehend that my money was mine to control, not theirs to command. The entitlement was breathtaking. My security system was the shield. My documented evidence was the sword. I had finally used my analytical, technical mind to fight the emotional war I was born into. I had closed the door on their toxicity, legally and definitively. I was no longer a victim waiting for permission to live my life. I was my own champion now. That smile wasn't triumphant, but genuinely free. I had risked everything, the last vestiges of my family tie, for peace, and I had secured it. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was full of potential. The next phase of my life, built on solid ground and legal facts, was starting right now. The phone rang again. Ethan. Predictable. He was probably calling from the side of the road, having just received the full download of his failed attempt and Dad's crushing defeat. I answered on the first ring, maintaining the calm, authoritative tone I'd perfected. "This is Skylar. You are currently trespassing on my property, recorded and reported to law enforcement. This call is also being recorded. No pleasantries, just facts." "Skylar, listen. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't know you would take it this far. I just need a place to stay," Mom said. "Mom does not own this house, Ethan. I do. And your actions today confirmed you are a threat to my safety and legal rights. The trespass warning stands. If you contact me again, or step foot on my property, the restraining order will be filed immediately." He finally heard the word, no. There was no point in debate. Ethan only understood force and consequence. I didn't wait for his next desperate appeal. I simply said, "This conversation is over." And I hung up, terminating the call with the same definitive click that had ended my phone call with Dad. The line was severed, the connection to the toxicity was cut clean. Was this the peaceful end, or a new beginning of war? I had barely put the phone down when a text message buzzed through. It was Ethan. The arrogance was infuriating, even digital. "You can't keep me out forever. I'm family. We'll be back, Skylar. You can't win this." The sheer entitlement of that message was the final nail in the coffin of any lingering guilt. They genuinely believed they had a right to what was mine, regardless of law or boundary. The digital war was officially ongoing. Fine. If they wanted to escalate, I would meet their desperation with my precision. I opened my laptop and pulled up the draft of the restraining order. It wasn't just for Ethan, it included both my parents. I had the documentation, bank statements, video evidence of the trespass, and their recorded admissions of manipulation. I was going to leverage the law to create a protective, legal chasm between us. Restraining order, the ultimate boundary. I reviewed the evidence. The $40,000 theft. Mom's voice saying, "Just tell Skylar you need a loan, she's too busy to check the details." Dad's quiet approval. It was a systemic pattern of exploitation that dated back years. I felt a surge of cold fury. This wasn't revenge, this was self-defense against a lifelong financial and emotional assault. My anger solidified my decision. I called my lawyer, Mark. His reaction to the video evidence of Ethan's trespass and my security system's automated 911 call was priceless. Mark, I need you to file the restraining order immediately. I have new threats from Ethan, and I'm ready to submit the full evidence package, including the financial records and the recorded calls. Mark was already typing. I had legal professionals on my side. After hanging up with Mark, I looked at my reflection. My eyes were tired, but the panic was gone. I had chosen isolation over destruction, legal fact over emotional fantasy. It was deeply lonely to cut ties with the only family I had ever known, but the alternative was annihilation. This was the moment I became my own protector, fully and completely. A solitary path to peace. Ethan and my parents would soon face the legal reality of their actions. But I knew the legal system only solved one part of the problem. The social narrative needed correcting too. I began uploading the most damning clips, the financial transfers, the parental manipulations, to a secure, anonymous cloud drive. The truth was ready for release. The public reckoning was next. I activated the final security level, a tripwire notification system that would alert my lawyer and the police before the trespasser even reached the door. I was done reacting. I was initiating. Ethan could insist all he wanted, but the boundary was a legal and technological wall now. My digital fortress was impenetrable. I had secured my home, my finances, and my sanity. The legal battle was underway, and the social exposure was pending. But there was one question that remained. How would my parents and Ethan react when the whole truth of their manipulation, backed by my immutable evidence, was finally brought into the light? I scrolled through old photos on my phone, the ones where we all smiled, pretending to be the perfect family. I wasn't angry anymore. I had moved past fury into a cold, clear space of understanding. It wasn't personal hatred, it was a systemic issue. My parents weren't malicious in the way of villains in a movie, they were just deeply conditioned exploiters, and I was the resource they believed they owned. The illusion was shattered. I saw the pattern laid out like a blueprint. Ethan was the golden child who could do no wrong. His failures were always my responsibility to fix. I was the responsible one, the achiever, whose accomplishments were only ever celebrated as a potential ATM for the family's next crisis. Every family gathering, every holiday, was a calculated performance designed to maintain the status quo of my servitude. My role was finally clear. The financial exploitation was the most painful betrayal, not just because of the money, but because it proved the depth of their disregard. They stole my college fund, convinced me to pay off their car, and then tried to pressure me into risking my home. They weaponized my success against me, believing my love meant endless, unquestioning sacrifice. No more unquestioning sacrifice. I had chosen the necessary path. Loneliness was a side effect, but it was nothing compared to the slow, suffocating death of being constantly exploited. I had traded an illusion of family for the reality of self-respect. My home was now my sanctuary, my fortress, and my legal evidence was the boundary that finally defined who was in and who was permanently out. Self-respect is the only foundation. The legal battle was beginning, but the moral victory was mine. Now that the line has been drawn and the truth exposed, what does life look like when you finally choose peace over the people who destroyed it? The true resolution awaits. I walked through the house one last time, checking the locks, verifying the security system's status. The physical boundaries were now absolute. The steel door, the coded locks, the infrared cameras, they were no longer just features of a house, but symbols of my new, permanent resolve. My home wasn't just a building, it was the manifestation of the no I had never been allowed to say. The fortress was officially sealed, the emotional boundary was next. I opened my phone and systematically deleted their contact information. It was a cleansing ritual. No more late-night calls demanding money, no more texts filled with passive-aggressive guilt. The door was physically locked, but more importantly, the emotional channel was closed. I finally understood that true distance isn't measured in miles, but in the silence of an unrung phone. Silence replaced the chaos. What lay ahead was uncertainty, but it was my uncertainty, free from their control. I saw a future where my achievements were mine to celebrate, not theirs to confiscate. A future where I chose my connections based on mutual respect, not toxic obligation. The weight of their expectations, which I had carried for decades, finally lifted, leaving me light and unburdened. True freedom is self-defined. My ultimate revenge wasn't the police report or the restraining order, it was the refusal to participate in their toxicity any longer. I had taken back my life using the only language they respected, cold, hard legal and financial facts. The final lesson is that you cannot win an emotional war against manipulators, but you can build a physical and legal wall they cannot breach. Logic triumphed over drama. I am safe now. I am free now. What did it take for you to finally draw your line, and what did you build on the other side of your boundary? 3 weeks of blessed silence had passed. I was starting to believe my legal moves had worked. Then the doorbell chimed, and I saw them on the monitor, Mom and Dad, standing right at my front gate. Their faces were a mixture of righteous indignation and tired desperation. They bypassed the intercom and rapped loudly on the glass door, expecting my instant submission. The final battle had arrived. I didn't open the door. I activated the intercom, letting my voice be projected through the gate speaker, clear, calm, and utterly devoid of emotion. Mom. Dad. You are currently trespassing on private property where you have been legally warned not to enter. You have precisely 1 minute to leave before the automatic warning system contacts law enforcement and my lawyer. The clock started ticking on the family. Skylar, please. We drove hours to see you. Are you really going to let a door keep us apart? This is insane. I'm your mother. You're breaking my heart. Just open the gate and let's talk this out, please. We're family. I watched her performance, recognizing the tired, predictable act. Her tears had lost all power. I tried talking, Mom. You responded by stealing $40,000 from my college fund and then using Dad to manipulate me into covering Ethan's debts. I have the recorded proof of that manipulation. You are not here to talk, you are here to resume your exploitation. That era is over. 20 seconds remaining before the alert is sent. The calm delivery was the weapon. Skylar, let's be adults. We can work this out. Don't throw away your family over money. We just want to see you. Can we set up a supervised meeting with a mediator? We're willing to compromise. His compromise was just an attempt to regain leverage. His desperation was palpable. There is no compromise, Dad. You have 2 seconds. The restraining order is already drafted. The moment I click this button, you face contempt of court charges. Your legal team has already been notified of my evidence. You are outside my house, but you are also outside my life. Time's up. The threat was immediate and real. I watched the subtle shift in Dad's face, the calculation, the sudden realization that I was no longer playing their game. He grabbed Mom's arm and they walked back to their car, defeated. They didn't just fail to breach the physical barrier, they failed to breach the wall of my resolve. The car pulled away, and the heavy gate silently closed behind them. My boundary held, absolutely. The silence that followed felt deeper, more satisfying than before. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the absence of threat. I walked into my living room, the sun streaming in, and felt a rush of genuine peace. This entire saga, the security system, the police report, the recorded calls, it was all necessary to buy this moment of quiet freedom. The price was worth the peace. I sent a quick text to Mark. They left at 10:05 a.m. Proceed with the final filing of the restraining order. No response required. I didn't want to discuss it further. The legal mechanism was in motion, and it would handle the logistics of my new life. My focus shifted from defense to creation, from reaction to peaceful creation. New chapters require focus. I picked up an old picture of myself from childhood. That little girl was constantly seeking her parents' approval, constantly being told she wasn't enough. I looked at her and silently promised that the adult me would protect her, always. My revenge wasn't against them, it was for her, the victim of their lifelong betrayal. The deepest healing had begun. The silence that followed felt deeper, more satisfying than before. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the absence of threat. I walked into my living room, the sun streaming in, and felt a rush of genuine peace. This entire saga, the security system, the police report, the recorded calls, it was all necessary to buy this moment of quiet freedom. The price was worth the peace. I sent a quick text to Mark. They left at 10:05 a.m. Proceed with the final filing of the restraining order. No response required. I didn't want to discuss it further. The legal mechanism was in motion, and it would handle the logistics of my new life. My focus shifted from defense to creation, from reaction to peaceful creation. New chapters require focus. I picked up an old picture of myself from childhood. That little girl was constantly seeking her parents' approval, constantly being told she wasn't enough. I looked at her and silently promised that the adult me would protect her, always. My revenge wasn't against them, it was for her, the victim of their lifelong betrayal. The deepest healing had begun. The public response to the leaked information was overwhelming. Strangers who had experienced similar family dynamics flooded my inbox with messages of support. The truth, once released, became a self-sustaining wildfire. The narrative my parents tried to control, that I was the villain, was collapsing under the weight of my verifiable evidence and the voices of my new, unexpected allies. The public saw the manipulation. I printed the final version of the lawsuit, a formal demand for the repayment of the stolen college fund and a permanent restraining order. It felt less like an act of revenge and more like a necessary legal transaction. The law provided the clean, professional boundary that my family's emotional chaos had always ignored. Boundary enforcement was complete. This story isn't just about a stolen house or a strained family. It's about the truth that manipulation thrives in darkness and silence. When you bring the law, the evidence, and the light of truth to the situation, the manipulators lose their power. My family's downfall was a direct result of my decision to stop participating in their lies. What are you doing to break free? The months that followed the legal action were strangely quiet. The silence was golden. No frantic calls, no veiled threats, no unexpected knocks. I got into a routine, one defined entirely by my needs, not theirs. I focused on my career, thriving without the constant financial drain. The energy I once spent on defense was now channeled into creation. Peace is productive. Winning the lawsuit wasn't just about the $40,000, it was about reclaiming my financial identity. I opened a new savings account, one completely separate from any shared past. It represented security, a solid foundation built entirely by me. My money was finally mine, untainted by their need or their manipulation. Financial freedom tasted sweet. I learned that healthy relationships don't feel like a negotiation. I met people who respected my boundaries instantly, without demanding endless explanations. I found connection that was based on mutual support, not conditional love or guilt. For the first time, I felt truly seen, not as a resource, but as a person capable of real, unburdened happiness. My heart could finally trust. My home, the one my family tried to seize, became the ultimate symbol of my self-reliance. I didn't just lock the doors, I rebuilt the interior, painted the walls, and cultivated the garden. I turned the site of their attempted invasion into a blooming, personal sanctuary. Every flower that bloomed was a small, silent victory over the chaos they tried to impose. Reclamation was beautiful. The final piece of my revenge wasn't in punishing them, but in showing them, and myself, that I could thrive entirely without them. I didn't let their toxicity become my identity. I am not the victim of a bad family, I am the architect of a beautiful, independent life. That realization is the truest form of freedom. Identity secured, finally. Once, a long time ago, a familiar email popped up in my spam folder. A final, desperate message from Mom's old address, probably about forgiving and forgetting. I didn't open it. I didn't even read the subject line. I simply marked it as spam, smiled, and returned to my work. Their desperation was no longer my emergency. The final, effortless win. The legal documents are still here. Not because I need to look at them every day, but because they serve as a physical reminder of the power of documentation. For anyone facing manipulation, remember this: emotions are ignored, but evidence and legal statutes are immutable. They are the tools that finally freed me. Legal truth sets you free. I often think about the nature of family. It's a word that can be used as a shield or a weapon. For me, it was always a cage. Now, the bars are gone, and the door is open. The most painful part of my life became the foundation for my strongest growth. I wouldn't wish my experience on anyone, but I value the clarity it brought. Clarity is the ultimate reward. Building a chosen family is different. It's a constant, gentle reinforcement that you are valued exactly as you are. I no longer had to earn my spot at the table, I was simply invited. I learned that true love doesn't demand sacrifice, it celebrates your individual well-being. I am finally valued. I realized my whole life had been structured around a fake debt, a debt of gratitude I was told I owed my family. The beautiful part of the end is that I finally paid that debt, not with money, but with the painful price of radical honesty and legal action. Now, I am debt-free, emotionally and financially. Free at last, completely. My revenge story is complete. It wasn't loud or explosive, it was strategically brilliant and utterly legal. If you feel trapped by the people who are supposed to love you, remember my lesson: you have the power to draw a line. What are the first steps you need to take to finally build your own fortress of peace? Not everyone cut ties. A few distant relatives, like Aunt Carol, tried to navigate the wreckage. Her calls were rare, scheduled, and always brief. They were marked by an honest, if cool, respect for my boundaries. Skylar? Just calling to check in. I know things are quiet now. I hope you're well. No need for detail. Just letting you know I'm thinking of you. Cool connection is better than fake warmth. Thank you, Carol. I am well. Life is peaceful. I appreciate you respecting the space I need. I'm focusing on work right now, so I only have a minute. I hope you're healthy. This new mode of communication was transactional, built on fact, not feeling. It lacked the frantic emotional energy of my old family dynamic. And that was exactly the point. Space and peace were the currency. I understand, Skylar. That's all I needed. Take care. She didn't try to guilt-trip me or negotiate an emotional opening. She knew the truth about my parents and Ethan, and her silent acknowledgement of the wreckage they created was more valuable than 100 forced apologies. The honest coldness felt like warm respect. Silence is a safe language. For every Aunt Carol, there were dozens of others who chose denial. They remained entrenched in the family drama, clinging to the comfortable illusion that I was the problem. I had to mourn the relationships that couldn't survive the truth. But I accepted it. Their denial was their way of protecting themselves from confronting their own enabling behavior. Truth is a social filter. I trained myself to de-escalate. When a flying monkey relative tried to contact me, my internal script was simple: record the conversation. State the legal boundary. End the call. Their anger no longer triggered my fear, it triggered my legal protocol. This was the core of my freedom, changing my emotional response from reaction to detached enforcement. My power lay in detachment. Family became a verb, not a noun. It was something I chose to build, moment by moment, with people who valued authenticity. The unconditional love I always craved was never going to come from my biological ties, but it came freely from my chosen connections. The warmth I found was not a replacement, it was the real thing. Chosen bonds are unbreakable. I realized my parents and Ethan would never change. They were trapped in their own cycle of entitlement and victimhood. I could pity the pattern, but I would never allow myself to be caught in it again. My goal wasn't their punishment, it was my permanent liberation from their disease. Freedom is non-negotiable. My quiet life now is the loud testimony to my independence. Every weed I pull is a metaphor for a toxic behavior I uprooted. Every healthy boundary I set is like a well-maintained fence around my peace. The cool honesty of my current relationships is the stable temperature required for growth. Growth requires safety. I made a promise to the young girl I once was, the one who constantly apologized for existing. That promise was, I will always choose your safety and your self-respect over their comfort and their demands. That commitment to myself is the most powerful weapon I ever wielded. Self-respect is the foundation of peace. My message to Aunt Carol was simple: thank you again. I am busy, but I am happy. Take care. No long explanation. No defense. Just the simple, honest truth. This cool, distant honesty is all that remains of my old family circle, and it is sufficient. It's the maximum connection I can safely afford. Minimal contact, maximum sanity. My story ends not with a bang, but with a quiet, powerful closing of a door. I learned that you don't need revenge to win, you just need boundaries. If your family relationships are toxic, what cool, honest truth do you need to speak today to finally claim your peace? I used to think the ultimate goal was to make my family love me. I thought reconciliation meant proving my worth. The biggest turning point of this entire revenge story was realizing that my worth was never up for negotiation. My only real goal was to protect the person I had neglected the most, myself. Self-protection is not selfish. The moment I chose to collect evidence, file the report, and serve the order, that wasn't an act of aggression, it was an act of extreme self-care. I stopped being the victim waiting for the abuser to change and became the architect building her own safe future. Empowerment came when I embraced the legality of my defense. Defense is self-love in action. Boundaries are often seen as harsh walls, but I see them as healthy fences. They don't keep love out, they keep toxicity out, allowing only respect and honesty in. My legal boundaries, the restraining order, the fraud filing, were the physical manifestations of the emotional line I should have drawn years ago. Boundaries breed respect. You might be watching this thinking, I can never do that. But if my story teaches you anything, it's this: your peace is worth the discomfort of their anger. You don't owe your abusers your silence or your forgiveness. You owe yourself safety and self-respect. Use the tools available to you. Take back your narrative. This is the end of my revenge story, a quiet, legal victory that resulted in a lifetime of freedom. My family is gone, but my life has never been richer. What is the one thing you are sacrificing today, your time, your money, your sanity, to maintain a toxic connection? And what is the first legal or personal step you will take this week to reclaim it? My story is proof that you can reclaim your life from toxic family dynamics. I won my freedom not with emotional explosions, but with calculated, legal precision. Now, it's your turn. I want you to take the strength you've witnessed here and apply it. My first lesson is simple: self-protection is your highest moral duty. Your safety comes first. Look at your own achievements, your career, your home, your mental health. Are they constantly under threat from manipulation? Lesson number 2, document everything. Record conversations, save emails, track every financial transaction. Toxic people leave a trail, your job is to preserve it. Lesson number 3, financial boundaries must be absolute. Never loan money you cannot afford to lose, and never mix finances with those who lack integrity. Evidence is your silent defense. We often fear legal action because it feels aggressive, but it is the ultimate neutral playing field. Lesson number 4, embrace the legality of your defense. The law doesn't care about their feelings or their excuses, it cares about evidence. Use it. Consult a lawyer about restraining orders, fraud reports, or simply sending a cease and desist letter. It's not revenge, It's an enforcement mechanism. The law is your strongest shield. When you set these boundaries, you will face pushback. You will be called selfish, ungrateful, or cold. But remember lesson number 5, your peace is worth the discomfort of their anger. Their negative reaction is simply proof that your boundaries are working. Don't mistake their manipulation for genuine concern. Own your space. Own your space and your truth. I want to hear your story. If you've successfully set and enforced a boundary, share your advice in the comments below. We are building a community of survivors who understand that self-protection is the ultimate revenge. Subscribe to join the conversation and let us know, what is the single, non-negotiable boundary you are establishing today to protect your achievements? Claim your power now.